We have had a hectic show, and I'm going to suggest that you share all the content we've delivered, and they are available as podcasts or on the Salam Media Facebook as well as YouTube pages or channels, and then share that with your friends because they need to watch and listen and cover and take in what we've said. So we always end up with this feature that we started about Know Your Mosque, and specifically it's about the 20 most historical mosques in South Africa, and we've covered many. Yesterday, the Lamini or the Masjid Al Ummah in Soweto. We've had the Newtown Hamidia Masjid in Johannesburg the other day. But let's talk about the Auwal Masjid, and I'm suggesting that's ground zero when it comes to mosques in South Africa. Mogamat Kamadien will tell us why. That mosque situated in the Bo Kaap area. And I was there like 2 weeks ago. So there we are. Mogamat, appreciate your time. Salaam alaikum.
Walaikum salam, Ashraf. Glad to be
Thank
on
you
the
so much.
program.
Alhamdulillah. So there we are. I visited the mosque, not for the first time, on many occasions, but the last was 2 weeks back on a Jummah. I suggested that it's ground zero. It's mosque number one in South Africa. Historically, is that a fact?
That is very much correct because Tuan Guru, as you know, was the first imam that was appointed. But the history of the mosque is much more richer. First of all, just contemporary wise, Bo Kaap Masajid, a few of them was recently about 2 years ago were proclaimed national heritage sites. I was part of the SARA task team meeting dealing with the Bo Kaap 19 heritage sites, and amongst others were the Auwal Masjid. And I was also privileged to be invited by the Bo Kaap Civic Association at the inaugural launch of the heritage site as a national significance. Furthermore, this masjid is also unique that the provincial heritage authorities have also recognized it and has also given it a provincial significance. So this particular masjid is now a monument in terms of two heritage authorities, which gives us ownership in South Africa, making us part of the South African story. I'm
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting you say that because I mean, if you look at mosques and nowadays, mosques are much bigger and newer and therefore fancier. I think of the West Street Mosque in Houghton in Johannesburg. I think of the Nizamiya Turkish Mosque in the Midrand area. I look at your mosque at the Al Quds Mosque in Gatesville. Your mosque, the Awal one, is not fancy. It's not big, but it has far greater historical value. So perhaps let's go into that. How was that mosque set up? Because there's an interesting story about who provided the wakaf for that mosque. Tell me about that.
Yes. First of all, we need to go to Islam when it was founded in South Africa. So when it was founded in South Africa, it was not publicly recognized by the state authorities. It was actually banned, and you could actually lose your limb for promoting Islam. Therefore, Islam was for during the Dutch slave period, really underground below the radar. And one way of how Islam established itself was by means of um, prayer chapels, as it's called, or langas in terms of the Indonesian term. So most of the original masajid, they started off as home prayer places. So it
Yeah.
was basically concealed from the public eye, even to the extent that it looks very much, yeah. So because Islam was being repressed and oppressed and being subject to raids by the police and law enforcement at the time, therefore the masajid basically started where free blacks would make available one or two rooms for prayer
Okay.
purposes.
Yeah. And then what happened next? I mean, at certain stage that the mosque could be built, right? Because it was allowed. So what happened then?
Yes, so during the Dutch period, it was primarily langas in terms of the Indonesian word, home prayer chapels.
Mm.
However, when the British authorities took over during the first occupation, they allowed Muslims to exercise or practice their deen, but still not publicly. Then during the Batavian Republic, where Tuan Guru becomes very much a feature, and also some of the imams of the second mosque, the second oldest mosque, the Palm Tree Mosque in Long Street, whereby the Batavian government was a revolutionary body in terms of the Napoleonic ideals, and then Islam was allowed to become visible. The result is that is the most important part where Tuan Guru became the institutionalization of Islam, where it became physical, became tangible, built presence, was then become part of the religious landscape or the diverse landscape of Cape Town. So primarily, for instance, the Masjid of Dorp Street and then also the Lutheran Church, they basically started as warehouses, not to be publicly recognizable. The
Okay.
result was that also minarets were not part of it. So if you were passing by, it looks like any other church. And then secondly, the minaret that nowadays defines a masjid were never. I think in the
Okay,
1930s.
that explains a lot. I think you're quite right. Let's talk very quickly about then the contribution of two women who played a huge role in the establishment of the Auwal Masjid. Very quickly.
Yes. In terms of Ahmad Davids's book, the focus is more on the males and the contribution of the imams and the khatibs, etc. But the bigger story really is that the Auwal Mosque or the Dorp Street Mosque was bequeathed by Sarki van der Kaap, who got this particular property from her mother, who was also a slave, former slave woman. And then also the Palm Tree Mosque itself also, where the founder passed it on to his wife, Samida van der Kaap. So these two women, they are the pivotal pioneers of Wakaf in South Africa. Well, for instance, in both cases, the properties would have been passed on to the children, but in this case, these two properties that was already being utilized and dedicated as masajid was then entrusted to the community as wakaf properties.
I'll tell you what, we can talk about the Auwal Masjid and its impact now. I certainly go, whenever I get to Cape Town or the Bo Kaap area, I definitely make a point of visiting there, always do, and the last was 2 weeks back. But I think just as we wrap up now, the historical touch points, and you've mentioned 4 or 5 of them, are just so important, and that is why clearly this mosque must be number one in terms of what we talk about as the 20 historically most important, most significant masjids in South Africa. Mogamat Kamadien, appreciate your time. I have a sense we'll have another chat about the Auwal Masjid sometime down the line. Thank you.
Inshallah. Wa alaikum salam.
Walaikum salam. There we are. Well, that's that fascinating story about the Auwal Masjid bequeathed ultimately by 2 women. You got that? Right. Coming up next, it's Juz 12 of the Holy Quran by Sheikh Salah there. That comes up next, right? But that's the show today. We'll do it again tomorrow from 8 a.m. I'm Ashraf Garda. Assalamu alaikum.